is Chief Meteorologist Chase Jones.
Well, we saw a frosty morning, then those clouds really pushed out of the way, those winds died down, and we're dealing with some calm and clear conditions, but we're headed back down to those freezing levels, so let's continue to make some of that cold weather preparation, because by tomorrow we're going to see that cloud cover push back in, and we're going to have some windier conditions on our hands. Now, sunset's getting later and later right now at 5:40 p.m., and take a good look at these temperatures over the last 24 hours, all the way down to 26 degrees. Then we screamed right up there into those lower 60s, and we're cooling off already, waiting for some of that cloud cover and some of those winds to make their way in from the south. They're going to be pretty gusty, up to about 30 miles per hour. So let's tie down the decorations again. If not, they're still already tied down. 60 degrees in San Angelo, everybody else in a combination of those upper 50s, those lower 60s across the entire area. 58 in Sterling City, 61 down there in Junction, looking like 3 degrees across the entire Concho Valley, if not 4. So pretty close together despite seeing some of those drier conditions push in. Take a good look at these dew points all the way down there in those teens, if not those single digits way out there in Mason, while the humidity indices are anywhere from those 20s up in higher elevations all the way down into somewhere in those teens in those lower elevations. So pretty dry as we see some of that cold air make its way out, but we're on the lookout for another frosty morning because those dew points are so low. When we talk about the dew points, we're really talking about that moisture, looking at the moisture tracker. Now, we have our eye on the Gulf Coast region because we're going to see the resurgence of those concentrations of blues really hover around, linger sort of throughout the rest of the weekend before they push their way out, and we see the next drop in temperatures, but it's looking like some light rain, if not some low clouds with those misty conditions. Now, the long wave trough is headed out, and we're dealing with some shorter wave troughs and some shorter wave ridges. That's going to keep us in those 60s and those 70s. But as we make our way closer towards next week, with Christmas sort of about 2 weeks out, 13 days give or take, Haley and I are on the fence about if it's earlier or not. We're going to see some of those colder temperatures make their way in by next week. Now, when we look at the water vapor imagery, we have our eye on the cloud cover around Southern California. You saw it's not really doing a whole lot to help put out those fires, but the winter storm barreling across the Rocky Mountains is going to keep things relatively cold, hoping some of that cold air makes its way down. It is 5 degrees in Minot, North Dakota right now. That's terrible. That's absolutely awful. Don't tell Brian. Severe weather outlook off towards the East Coast, really. And when we look at the surface, we're really keeping our eye on sort of that circulation again around the Hudson Bay. That's where we're seeing a lot of that severe weather erupt as it comes in contact with some of that warm Gulf water. Now, the winter storm really just pushing across the entire sort of central plains, but we have our eye on the cloud cover making its way down from the Rocky Mountains, and that's where we have our cloud cover on, set to return by tomorrow. Pretty low cloud cover. Then it's going to stick around with some of those stronger winds, definitely going to warm up. You see that cloud cover make its way back in by about Thursday, Friday. Then we see some stronger concentrations turn into a pretty powerful ice storm around Nebraska. But as we look at the Concho Valley, that's where we're seeing some of that low cloud cover by about Friday morning, if not Saturday morning, as we make our way in sort of that comfortable weekend. So really focusing on those winds again. You're going to see it pretty powerful pushing in by Thursday morning. You see it from the south about 15 to 20 miles per hour. It will pick up by the afternoon somewhere around 20 miles per hour, gusting up to 30. So let's make sure we're ready for some of those windier but warm conditions tonight. Back down near freezing. Now, I have been off by a couple degrees, so it could still get there. Then tomorrow, back up into the 60s with some of those stronger winds. We continue to warm up from there by the weekend into those 70s, and that's where we're going to level out as we continue to fight back and forth, seeing a small drop in temperatures down into those 60s, and by next week all the way down to 60 degrees, while those overnight lows go from those 50s back down into those 40s. Stay tuned. I'm over the break. You're watching KSAN News at 5.